episode of Millennials to Millionaires. I'm your host, Alicia Ace West.
Daniel King, a.k.a. King Sold.
We got Black excellence in the place. We got a special guest, Sherard McQueen. He is the CEO of M5V Developments. He's a York University grad, went to Harvard. He's a certified negotiator, a multinational real estate investment firm with over $1 billion. Did you hear me? $1 billion in transactions. Welcome to the place.
Thank you very much. I've been excited to get on, and I've been really looking forward to this moment.
Waiting.
I was very impatient, but it's come.
But now you're here,
and
we want to know your stories. We want to understand, what's going on. How do you get $1 billion in transactions, right? So
Sure.
You've been doing real estate for a minute now. When did you start?
I started when I was about 23. I was just home from university, and I decided it was either stocks or real estate.
Yeah.
My dad had been he had been in stocks for a while, and I'd seen some of the up and downs with it. So I chose a different path, and real estate was the path. I wanted to do something that was kind of tangible.
Yeah.
And it's worked out.
Clearly,
yeah.
$1 billion. I'm not going to get over that because
it's a big number.
It's a big number.
It's a very, very big number.
Big B. So you started from such a young age. When did you realize that this was something that you could do long term?
You know what? I think when you go into something you don't really know, you're young, you're ambitious, but you don't really know, is this something you're going to do forever? And then you're 5 and you're 10 years down the line, and then you look back and you built up such a track record for success, you realize this is something you want to do long term. And I was able to help empower other people in my lives. I had a lot of clients at the time. I was selling retail real estate, and just the type of feeling that you get when people are able to they're able to get into their first property, maybe make some money in an investment, more money than they've made before. It really gives you that sense of fulfillment, and then you kind of decide, hey, this is something I want to do. I can make money, and I can also be a positive impact on my community.
How long in the game before you were okay, this is really making me good money?
You know what? It was pretty much you get your first check and you realize, you say,
oh, dang.
Hold on, this is, because if you sell it, the numbers aren't, it's not a secret.
Yeah.
So agents are getting paid 2.5% commission, but if you're selling something for $400,000, it's 10 grand.
Yeah.
And you're 23, 24, and you made $10,000.
It's 5 figures. It's a big number.
Yeah, it's not quite 6, but it's 5, and you're yeah.
No, for one paycheck.
For one paycheck. And
yeah.
then you start stacking them on top of them, and you do 5, 10 transactions, and it starts adding up, right? So once you see that first thing, and before that, I had some other jobs, but it was nothing really serious because I was in York University. So, you're working part-time, so you're not seeing anything like that. And then you get that check and you help somebody. I think my first client was, they were a young couple. They hadn't owned anything before, and they entrusted me with the transaction, and everything was good. I think they invited me over. That's always the best, when they invite you over for the housewarming party, and everybody's shaking your hand like you're the president. I thought it was Obama. I was like, and that was before Obama, so I don't know who I thought I was at the time, but it doesn't matter. In retrospect, I thought it was Obama, and it was amazing. So that feeling is really what empowers you. I think
such a fulfilling moment.
Yeah, I think, okay, everybody wants to make money, and I understand that, but if you're not doing something that fulfills a purpose, then I don't think it makes any sense. So you want to make money is almost secondary. If you're doing something you love, and then you can make money, it's a win.
Yes.
And it's amazing because I'm actually the product of Sherard's tutelage. He sold my first property for me when I was 21. And it was funny. I remember interviewing different agents. I had 5 agents I was interviewing, the top 5 agents in the city. And he came in, I had my poker face on. And I'm like, I know all these agents are just looking for a check.
It's just a cash grab.
I'm sitting back. I have my feet up, I'm like, this guy's working for me. You know what I mean? Little did I know I'd be working for him, but
flip the script.
I sat back and, I'm like, why do you think you're the best guy for the job? And you know, one thing he said is like, honestly, man, like I'm doing you a favor. Like I don't even sell properties
Talk
like
that
that are 200 grand. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm doing, but the other agents were like, you know, I'm gonna sell your property for you. I'm gonna get the best number, and they were just so hungry. I could tell that they just wanted that check because they needed to pay their mortgage or their rent. They were overselling, but I can tell their motives were for them. You know what I mean? Where Sherard's motive, I noticed, is like he saw that I was young. And, you know, he saw a little bit of me in him. And this was my first property, you know, and I'm just like, you know, I want to make sure I make the best decision because your realtor is who's representing you. Yeah. They're the person that's going to be negotiating. And if you have an experienced realtor, they'll just take the first offer that's on the table and cut the check. You know,
they'll be like, I want to be done with this.
That's
like,
it.
I'm over it.
That's it. But when you have like, you know, the Harvard negotiation skills, you're able to turn down the wrong deals and essentially get the best number that's on the table. And that's what Sherard did for me and my business partner at the time. And we flipped that condo and the rest is history, as they say.
So how did this mentorship begin?
So I was selling cars. After, you know, Sherard did such a great job with my condo, I'm like, you know, I owe this guy the world. You know, I had this condo up on the market for 3 months, no bites, no offers, nothing, and he came in and sold it in a week. Wow. So I'm like, listen, man,
get it done.
I'm like, I sell cars, you know, so let me know, like, you know, I have a dealership, you know, anything that you need, you're getting it at cost, you know, you just hook me up, you're family now. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I'm actually looking for a car for my cleaning lady. And it was a Honda Civic. Within a couple of weeks, I picked it up from the auction. And then after that, you know, I got a Isaiah, his first car. We did about 4 or 5, you know, transactions in a year. And from there, you know, Sherard, one thing he told me that stuck with me, he's like, listen, you're good at doing what you do. You're good at selling. But a real estate license is a license to print money. Right. And I saw his lifestyle and I'm like, listen, I know I'm coming out of university. One thing I always notice that you have to find a mentor, someone that you could follow, someone that's living a lifestyle that you want to live, and just follow their directions because they're going to take you to the path to success with as little detours as possible.
What did you see in Daniel as like potentially being your mentee? Like,
well, you know what? He was hungry. Yeah. I think Daniel was very hungry. He was somebody, you could tell he wanted it, but he was selling cars. And the thing is, again, my dad, he's had every job. So he used to be the general manager and he used to sell cars. And I knew it was a tough gig. And I knew if you could sell cars, you could sell houses. Yeah. You could sell anything. So just have a higher value dollar item. And so I said, okay, let's do in the real estate. But it didn't happen like that initially because initially he didn't have his license. So people come to me all the time, I want to sell real estate, I want to get into real estate. I'm like, get your license and then come see me because that's the first hurdle. Are you going to go there and you're going to get your license? Do the studying. Like everybody wants to play in the real estate game, but they don't want to do the work that it takes to get there initially.
We want the money.
Yeah, they want the money.
Have to, like, give me the actual grinding.
They're like, you want me to go to school? You want me to do work? You want me to open the book? Yes. This is what it takes to celebrate. So people only see, you know, all the fruits of the labor, but they don't see the roots and what it takes to get there. So I kind of left it with him and said, let's see what happens. Yeah. And I don't know, 8 months, a year later, he called me. He's like, I have a license. Okay, well now he's past the first step. Yeah. He's hungry and he's willing to put in the time and energy and do the book work.
And making that first investment too, right? Because you got to pay for school, and that's like a step. Like,
you got to invest in yourself. No one else is going to invest in you. You gotta put your money where your mouth is.
Right. So he did that. So I said, okay. But initially, I actually said, okay, we'll work with this other gentleman who was in the industry. And, you know, I'm going to step in along the way because I'm doing development. I'm not doing retail sales anymore. So I'm not going to be able to be hands-on. So I put him with this guy, and I think they were doing good. And then one day, Daniel came across my development package. I didn't even send it to Daniel. I'm like, Daniel's a new agent. Daniel's not going to sell any units. Yeah. You know, Daniel's not going to sell any units. So he got the email. I don't know how he intercepted the email or where he got the email, but he got the email. He's like, you know what, Sherard, I'm going to sell some units for you. And I said, okay, let's see. He's like, I want you to come sit on one sales meeting, just one, and I'll do the rest. So I had other engagements that day, but he had already set this meeting up. That's Daniel. He already had the meeting set up.
Yeah. He's calling you like, are you there?
Are you available? So I said, you know what? I'm going to put the other meeting aside. Dang, I'm going to do one meeting, but this is not, you know, a traditional thing. I did the one meeting. He had like 8 or 9 people show up in this one meeting, and he sold 8 units.
Oh, wow.
So I said, hold on. Okay, this is
job,
something.
Daniel.
And he had a whole presentation lined up that I've never seen. He had it on the board. Yeah. He had visuals. He had Moet. He was popping bottles in there. Oh. He had wine and cheese. Oh. I'm like, okay, hold on.
Now.
Yeah, he was popping. So I said, he's serious, right? So after you moved those units, then we said, okay, let's have a serious conversation. And then he went on and he moved like 50, 60 units. It got to 110, but he did it in like 6 months.
That's amazing.
And he was serious. So that was like it was kudos to him because it wasn't really me. I gave him a framework, but then he did the rest.
And I'll be honest about that one meeting. That was very, very essential for me. And I remember taking out my iPhone and it's hitting the voice memo. I hit that red button and the meeting was like 2 hours long. I recorded the entire meeting because I'm like, you know what? I'm only getting one of these. Yeah. I need to make sure, like when I watch The Last Dance, when I watch MJ, he's watching the game tapes.
Yeah.
When the game is done, he's at home, he's watching the game tapes.
Review and how you can be better.
Exactly. So I recorded that and honestly, I didn't listen to music or audiobooks, anything for a week straight.
You just kept playing
it over. And it was going until I could literally recite the entire presentation.
I was going to say, knowing you could probably do the same thing over and over again 100%. To this day too.
Right now. Just hit play. I'll go right now. I don't know if we have 57 minutes, but hit play and I'll go right now.
Very on brand for you.
Yeah.
But that's good. It shows that you were dedicated to where you wanted to be, right? And like showing up. I feel like a lot of people that reach out for mentorship, they don't realize that you also have to do something for the mentor. Like you can't just be like, here, like give me all your knowledge and stuff like that. Like provide something. And clearly you did. You provided a whole bunch of sold units.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
You was even like, yo, like I'm really gonna help you now. So.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. You know, I would have just been happy with someone who actually wants to do the work.
Yeah.
Because you get people and they come to me all the time and they say, okay, and then you take them and you show them some stuff and then they disappear and they don't really, the whole process, they don't want it. They want to drive the nice car and have the fancy out, and that's good, but it's a process. Yeah. And I think the process is the beautiful part. It's not just to me to get to the end goal. I love working. I love doing the work. I love seeing every step in the process. It empowers me. It fills me up. And I feel like to get to my next step, I have to help people reach their next step. And if you're doing that, you're always winning, right? So once he did that, I thought it was great. And, you know, it's been like 24 months now. He's been doing exceptional. Now he's part of, so we have 4 sites. He's bought into ownership in the 4 sites. So now he's a developer. So we're fast tracking him to where he needs to go. Obviously, the goal of any mentor is to have their mentee stand on their shoulders and to get to where they want to go a lot faster than it took me.
Yeah, for sure. That's so key. And I'm just so happy that you guys have been able to form this beautiful bond and that you're showing up and showing out.
Showing up.
Right?
Yes.
Were there any moments in your career that you were like, oh my gosh, I think I might have to quit? Like, I don't know if this is for me.
You know what? No moments where I thought I had to quit, but I have a business partner. He's like remains nameless. He's never like, he's always like behind the scenes. He's super anonymous. But there's many times I'm like, I can't work with this guy, you know, because we're like the odd couple. Yeah. We're just diametrically opposed. We're like 2 different people. But now over the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, I've never felt that way. And there's so much strength in that diversity. Yeah. He's from a totally different background. Like we went to high school together, but he's just a different person than I am. But I lean on him. I call him, and I think we never had mentors that we could actually talk to, but we had each other. We formed a brotherhood. Yeah. And now it's like he'll bounce ideas off me. We'll talk about personal life. We'll talk about business life. We have a summit every couple of months, and we just rap. But there was definitely moments I'm like, man, he really wants to do something different because he's more pragmatic. He doesn't want to spend money. That's him. I want to spend money to make money. He wants to save money to increase the delta between, to increase his revenue. So there's, a top-down approach, a bottom-up approach. It's fine. It's just different people see the world differently. Yeah. But now we've found an equilibrium over the last 7 years. We've been working together for 20 years. Yeah. We went to high school together. We're in the same classes together. So, sometimes there is that.
You guys have been putting in life together.
We put in a lot of work. So sometimes there's that fatigue.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, you know what? I need to go on my own and I'm going to show him what I can do. Yeah. But you know what? We're much better together. And we own a retirement home together. We've we've done all our projects together. We own the real estate brokerage together. We've done everything together. So, but that was one of the main challenges I had early on. And then I think a second challenge was I was selling real estate in Brampton and moving to Toronto because everything in Brampton was hard. It was like people had families. I didn't have family. They wanted to know where the backyard and the schools were. I didn't know because I was downtown hanging out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really for me. And it was something there that was incongruent. But I said, you know what, let's go downtown. We're going to do new condos. And that fit because we were downtown. We knew where the restaurants were. We knew where everything was. We knew where the clubs were at. This is where we partied. We played. Yeah. So once that everything unlocked, and then we were just running from there.
And then you just stuck in Toronto?
It was always new construction.
Yeah.
So that's where the money was being made for a decade in Toronto. Everybody was doing new construction. Now it's becoming a little bit saturated. Price per square foot, which you guys have probably touched on before, is getting very high. So now we're moving into some of the secondary
looking
markets.
At these prices like, oh my God.
They're unaffordable.
I'm never gonna own in Toronto ever.
Let's not put out that out there. You're gonna be good. You got Daniel, you got Twee, you've got some people to kind of guide you.
Yeah.
But the thing too is, especially in your vocation, you're unplugged. It's not like you have to be somewhere at a certain time. Like you have flexibility. So that's why people are moving out into secondary markets because they don't need to necessarily be attached to Toronto, especially with COVID and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously been a lot of destruction, a lot of things that have not been positive. But one of the positives is now people can work from other places.
Like me, like now since March, like I've just been at home working, and
That's
it's the
what I'm
best
saying.
thing ever. Like you know what I
too
mean? I
good.
never have to leave my house ever. I can sit on my patio all day and work. Like this
So
is
how do you
amazing.
do your work? Are you one of those people who do work like you still get dressed up and you go to a desk even though you're at your house?
I
Or
was
you're one of
sitting
these
on
like
the
you're in your
floor and
PJs?
on my patio, in a tank top and shorts, like looking
That's
like I'm
how I like to
meditating.
do it.
Like that's how I'm working. Unless I have to do like a video conference,
Right.
then you'll get a T-shirt out of me.
Top
no
up.
makeup, still wearing like pajama shorts or something.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
It is. It's a whole new world. And for me, when I think about where I want to live next, I'm just like, I don't even need to really be in Toronto if I'm only going to go there for a couple of events, like a couple of days a week. Like, unless I have to travel every single day and have to fight traffic and stuff like that, what's the point? Because for me, I would love to have a house with a backyard and some space and like be able to decorate and not using these little pinch couches and stuff like that.
That's the condo size furniture.
I'm so over it. Like, so yeah, it's definitely like opened up a whole new like, world to me. Just seeing that you don't have to live in Toronto. It ain't that great.
It really is the greatest city on the world. She didn't mean that, but at the end of the day, you have other
areas, right?
And there's so much areas to discover. I like stuff, off where there's still transit.
Yeah.
But we love Niagara. Innisfil's great. So there's a lot of places that you can still go to, and now you're not locked in. So
absolutely.
When you're asking me, I was in Toronto for numerous years. I lived downtown. I did everything. But now you're seeing, gastropubs and restaurants and different stuff pop up other places because they're realizing, okay, there's outside of this, there's other places in the diaspora that are going to work for you, and people are discovering that, and that's why property values in those areas are rising. So we think it makes sense, and Daniel's been a big advocate of that for Niagara, and people have really been resonating.
Almost definitely. And it's a lot of first-time home buyers, a lot of first-time investors. Like when you're buying property in Toronto right now, like you're not really going to be able to cash flow because your mortgage is more than what you can actually rent the property out for.
Yeah.
Sure.
So yeah, looking at these secondary markets definitely are a game changer for people that are trying to get in the market, people that are trying to make cash flow. I think even with COVID, people seeing like, I need a secondary source of income.
Yeah.
I can't just depend on one job. So now this has been a wake-up call for people that, okay, maybe I need an investment. Maybe I need something bringing me in $1,000, $200, $2,000 cash flow every month so that I'm not just depending on someone and I have my destiny in someone else's hands.
Yeah, because you just never know.
Never.
Yeah. So this is going to be a 3-part episode. Sherard is not going anywhere. In the next episode, you guys are going to get real into real estate. Twee's going to jump in. So, we're going to end this one off right here. And this was part 1 of Millennials to Millionaires.
What's going on, Sherard?
You know what? I'm asking you guys. You know,
we need to get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah,
let's take a deep dive.
This is part 2. We want to take a deep dive into real estate, into development. Let people really know what time it is.
Why did you make that transition from real estate agent to developer?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and everybody's gonna find this if they're working for somebody, is controlling your own revenue stream. Mm-hmm. You don't want other people in control, which is now what people are realizing is they're working for a boss, and nobody's down on that, but maybe that needs to be a transition. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that you want to do long term, because you don't want your personal finances to be tied to somebody else's success or failures. And if you ever have that, then you're always in a precarious position. And you've seen that now with COVID, with this pandemic, but you've seen it historically. You've given yourself to an employer, you've given yourself to a certain vocation, and then it trails off, and now you're in a situation where your family's in peril. So when I was selling residential real estate, as much as you're an entrepreneur, you're still depending on other builders to pay you commission and do transactional real estate with people. And I felt, I need some other streams of revenue that are going to be residual. And so then we got into the development space, and we had learned a lot just from being around the space and selling for developers. So you kind of learn the ins and outs. I had my license for almost 20 years. So you learn a lot in that time. And then you realize, it's time to transition into something else that's going to create, intergenerational wealth and keep a revenue stream going.
So when you were transitioning, what was like your first development project, and how did it go?
Well, you know what? We actually, and I have a business partner, and he's always an anonymous guy. I spoke about in the last episode. He's not
nameless.
Yeah, he's a nameless guy. He's on the, but that's how he likes it, and that's why I'm more of the face. But he's just as equal as me, and he's just as instrumental in the success of the company as I am. But he's just a little bit more low key, which I respect. But we actually owned a property in North Carolina 15 years ago. And that was our first development project. So it was a long time.
North Carolina.
How did you go from the States? We started in Canada. Well, you were born in Buffalo, right?
Well, listen, I don't like to get into that, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, when Obama was president, it was, like I'm a proud American. Right now, I don't quite have that same energy. But I was born in the States, but I came here when I was 12. So, and I'm 43 now, so I've been here 31 years. But my mom actually, and I think this is where I get it from, she's always involved in the community, as is my dad. So they have a charter school in the States, which is, it's a school that has a private mandate, but it's publicly funded. So they create their own curriculum and things of that nature, and they get the money from the government. But at the time, when you would go to the bank as a charter school, they wouldn't fund you to own your own building. So all the charter schools are renting their facilities, right? So my mom called me. I was in real estate, but I was 5-6 years in at the time, and said, hey, can you help us get a building? We'll rent from you, because we're going to rent from someone else. We can't get financing. We'll rent from you. So that deal, I purchased a building for $1.2 million. I put down
How old were you when you did this?
It was 15 years, so I was like 27, 28. Like, I was young.
Yeah, we got to get to work.
Yeah, you got to get to work.
That's where we at right now.
We got to get working.
I was 27, 28, and what I had done, so there's no mystery, I had stacked all my real estate paychecks. Okay. So, you're selling new condo development, you're making $10,000, $15,000 every time you sell a unit. Yeah. You get maybe 3-4 deals closed at once. You're at $60,000. Yeah. My business partner is 60. That's already 120, right? Yeah. So it wasn't a magic serum. It was a magic bullet.
No sauce.
No, there was no secret sauce. We worked hard. We got commission. We stacked the commission. We put down like $200,000. But the thing about this deal, and you'll see a lot of this in the States, the guy did a vendor take back mortgage.
VTB.
So VTB.
Well, what is a VTB?
So the VTB means you don't go to the bank, you put down the amount of money, and he carries the balance of the mortgage. So instead of being TD Bank or RBC, he carried the mortgage, meaning the owner of the property, because it was free and clear. Now, the best part about it is he gave me at 0% interest.
What?
And he did this because he thought he had some complicated tax thing, and he was like, he doesn't want to take all the money at one time. He wants to take the money incrementally so he could spread it over multiple years, his tax hit. And he thought by not taking interest, that means the asset wasn't completely disposed. Whether that meant that or not is completely immaterial, because that was on his side. But it's 0% interest. I was like, okay, this is amazing.
It's a no-brainer.
It was a no-brainer. Then we renovated the building, and you seen who's my business partner. He actually went down there and renovated it. Not personally, but he was the construction manager. So he was on site.
Yeah.
He was sleeping in the building.
Word.
He wouldn't go home because his brother who's a neurosurgeon, but his brother went to Duke. But Duke and where this was, they're both in North Carolina, but they're like 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So he couldn't drive home at night anymore.
Okay.
So he would just sleep there. He'd sleep in the computer room. He'd sleep in the coat closet. He'd sleep wherever. Like, we're grinding. Like, this is how the money is made, right?
Yeah.
It's not all this glamour.
What was the building's previous use before you guys?
It was a warehouse. It was 24,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet was office, and the other 18,000 was warehouse. Wow. So we kept the 6,000 square feet. We used that as the administrative offices, and the 18,000 square feet we retrofitted it, and we made it into a school. We donated them a computer lab, which we always believe in charity. So that was amazing. These kids had no computers. They were underprivileged. So we donated the computer lab, and we renovated the whole building. That was another 400,000.
400. So
which
you put
we
up
cobbled
200.
together.
So you put up 200.
Yes.
And then another 4. So
And the
you're all
other
in
4
6.
was Yassine's grandmother had sold her property, and she was moving in with the family because she couldn't live on her own anymore. And she said, sell this property for me, and whatever it is, you keep it and pay me, monthly interest to give me something to live off.
Wow.
That's a blessing.
Well, this is what I want to talk in terms of our community. And our community is just people, young people or whatever, anybody who resonates with our message. You got to help each other out. If the parents are listening, you got to help the children. I don't think there's enough of that going on. It's like, you know what? Don't worry. When I'm dead, you'll get this. But by then it's too late. You're
way too
65. Like, people are living forever. Do it now. So it was like part of her living will. Take this money, because she was like 70. And she gave us the money.
In perspective, your parents gave you an opportunity as well, right?
You know what? It's true. They gave me an opportunity. It's mutualism at its finest.
For sure.
Because she didn't want to put the money in the stock market. She wanted to make sure, obviously, the money was secure, and she knew that no matter long as we were breathing, we're gonna make sure she gets her monthly payment. She was living with Yassine, so you can't come home and you haven't paid her monthly money.
Yo, where my money at?
Grandma would have had to boss up on it. Yeah. So we did that building. And, they were paying substantial rent every month because there's 24,000 square feet on 1.3 acres. They had 400 students. So they were getting the money publicly funded, and we got the money. But at the end of that story, after 12, 13 years, they actually bought the building. So it was great. So it had a happy ending.
Your parents bought it off of you.
My parents now own the building. They have 3 schools now. But that was my first foray into development. And it was a very successful thing.
Just roughly, like, what did you guys kind of clear on that transaction?
No, well, we bought 1.4 and we sold it to them at $4 million US.
Jeez.
So we did good, but we had it for.
So they didn't get the family and friends discount.
That was the family and friends discount. I wanted 5, but at the end of the day, I was like, you guys have been here, you guys have been renting, it's all love.
And you paid down the mortgage.
And you paid down the mortgage.
Yeah, they didn't miss no payments or nothing. Like, you're my son.
I'm gonna be honest, because you know what? This, I think, is all about transparency. Sometimes the rent was a little late, and what can you do? No, how are you gonna get the money?
Mom, I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving.
No, but this is what I had to do, because my dad is the executive director. My mom, who she's a PhD in education, that's her side. My mom doesn't control the money, but you can't reason with my dad sometimes. So I would call him and he'd be like, "Oh, don't worry, son, we're gonna get that payment when we get it." So then I'd have to call mom. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I literally have to leverage mom. I'm like, "Hey, mom, you know what? Dad's like a week late on this payment." And then she would call dad. And then dad would call me, right? And Yassine would be on the sideline because he doesn't want to get involved at all.
So he's watching his grandma's money.
And I make him deal with grandma, right? Yeah. So, but this is what it takes, right? It takes some ingenuity and it takes sweat equity. People see the end result and they're like, "Oh, this is very nice." But do they want to do the work? And that's the key. I think you guys have shown you guys want to do the work. Yeah. If you have the opportunity, you make the most of it.
So when it comes to like GTA development or development on this side, like what is the process from beginning to end in a development?
The Coles notes, because I know you can't get into that in 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, I can't give you, the secret ingredient, right? Because no, but of course I can. And anyone who wants to do development, we have enough immigration coming in that there's enough room at the table.
Is there.
And enough land as well.
There's enough land.
Canada's full of land.
We have nothing but land, and there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm actually here to teach, and we have a master class where I'm doing just that. But I mean, the first thing is identifying an area that you think is going to be successful. We love Niagara. We love things off the transit line. We love things within an hour and 20 minutes from the epicenter, downtown Toronto, because this is still where this area is built on. So if you're going to do the GTA. And then you have to choose the correct built form. Some people want to build high rise. Some people want to build single family detaches. And in doing that, what you have to do is create a pro forma. And pro forma is just a breakdown of all the costs associated with how much you're going to sell the product for, and then obviously your expected revenue. Mm-hmm. So once you do that, those are the first two steps. Then you acquire the land. Depending on where it is, you can pay in the suburbs $1 million to $2 million an acre, and downtown you can pay $10 million. You won't even get an acre, but you can pay 10, 20 million for an acre downtown. Sites are very tight. But if you're talking about the suburbs, those are kind of the numbers. Closing land deal can be a little bit tricky, but sometimes you'll find a property that actually has a house already on it. Mm-hmm. So then you can get a residential mortgage. So that's one of the tricks.
That's a secret.
Well, that's one of the secrets, because if you can get a house that is maybe on an acre, but has a house on it, then you can get a residential mortgage.
You can
maybe
put 5% down.
You can
right?
put 5 or 10% down.
Arguably speaking, yeah.
Right. And I always tell people, if you're going to get into development, the first thing you want to do, and I tell people, I think renovation is harder than development. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're tying into an existing structure, it's going to be different. It's like you're in a relationship with someone, you're like, this relationship's too tough, but my next relationship, I'm going to learn from this one. I'm going to do it because it's clean. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you have all that baggage, and renovation is just a bunch of baggage, it's everything's gone wrong. Yeah, so I've done some custom homes that we renovated downtown Toronto. Maybe we put in 800, 600,000. We're tougher than building from scratch because everything is a problem. The house is not straight, this, that, right? So it always becomes an issue. So those are one of the things. But now you have the land. We also do something called a sprint, which is basically like a focus group. So you want to make sure that whatever you're going to build is kind of going to resonate with your core audience. And then after you go through that, you've got to get Terry on, because you have to have a warranty. You have to find a construction manager, and I'm the developer. I put everything together. I'm like the director. Mm-hmm. But then you have a construction manager, and he's on site. Right? I would actually say I'm the producer. I guess the producer puts everything together. The director is the guy in the chair on site. So the construction manager is the director. Yeah. And then you have all the actors. And the actors are the different people who are there, and they're putting different parts of the project together. Mm-hmm. And then after the end of that, you get to closing. People get their keys. So it's kind of like the Coles notes. And there's a lot of minutia between the beginning and the end. But I think coming 2021, when people start gathering again, I actually have a live forum, because I think you have to touch people and actually take them to the site and show them, hey, this is what development is. Because there's no real course for development. People are like, oh, well, how do you get into development? It's not like you want to be a doctor. You do 4 years undergrad, you do your next 4 years med school, 2 years internship, you're a doctor. It's a very, very clear path. Mm-hmm. There's no path for developer. It's kind of, you learn, there's lawyers who became developers. There's obviously tradespeople who become developers. There are realtors who become developers, but there's not a clear path. There's some courses that are happening right now where, they're talking about development. These haven't really been tested. They haven't been vetted yet, because people haven't graduated from them yet. So there is really no school.
So it's like trial and error almost.
It's a trial and error. Nobody has a blueprint yet for a developer. It's a lot of old money. A lot of other people's fathers used to be in development.
They pass it down.
And they pass it down. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make development more accessible. Even if someone just wants to develop a 6 or 8 unit building that they're going to build for themselves and use to generate cash flow, that's fine. Everybody is not going to build 200 or 1,000 units. Mm-hmm. But when we say development, we can go from the small scale all the way up to larger scale. But I think it's a skill set that everyone should have. Like, everyone should know how to swim, because a life-saving skill. Yeah. Knowing how to development, knowing how to create wealth through real estate is a life skill.
Because that money is long money.
It's long money.
And it's your legacy as well.
Right, exactly.
That's key. A lot of people I know, they think of development as like, you guys are just sitting back making all the millions, and they don't really see all the blood, sweat, and tears and how long of a process of work it actually takes to even put a shovel in the ground. Like, before you actually put a shovel in the ground, like, how much work really goes into it? Because people think you just buy the land and you just start to build the next day.
Sure. Well, the first thing is when you're finding a site. And that process of finding a site, finding somewhere that you think is economically viable, could take 2-3 years.
Vetting process.
It's a vetting process, right? Like when Walmart's looking for a site, they might be in a market for 3, 4, 5 years. They're checking out everything. You're trying to see how the municipality deals with permits and things of that nature. So you really have to absorb yourself in a community before you do anything. So that could already be 2-3 years. But now once you found that community, now you can probably do multiple sites in that community. But even once you get the land, normally the land is not zoned. So that means there's land there, but it's allocated by the city and designed to do something different. So if it's zoned,
different purpose.
Right, it has a different purpose. So because here, unlike the States, they don't want residential right next to commercial, right next to a warehouse. In the States, a lot of areas I find they're very mixed. Yeah. But here it's very compartmentalized. So this is residential, and that means that's it. So let's say something is zoned for low-rise residential. That means nothing over like 2.5 stories or 3 stories. Now you want to put a 6-story building, you've got to go get that rezoned. You have to go into the city, meet with the powers that be, and they have planners and things of that nature. And then you have to pretty much pitch your idea. And if it resonates with them, then they'll take it into city council and they'll let you change the zoning to, hey, we'll let them build a 6-story building. That could be an 8-month process in the suburbs. It could be a 2-year process, 3 years in Toronto.
Yeah. And you could essentially go that 2 or 3 years, and then they say no.
Of course.
And then you have to start all over again.
Well, not only do you have to start all over, you may have land that you bought and you said, we're going to do a high-rise building on, and they said no, and you still own the land.
Yeah, so you're still paying a mortgage every month.
But now what do you do with the land? Now you have to sell it to somebody else, but that person probably wanted to do the same thing that you wanted to do that they told you no about, right? Yeah. So now what do you do? So it's something that you really have to understand all the different steps, and you have to be very pragmatic. So there's a lot of risk associated with it, which is why I say if people want to get into this game, start small. Start with renovations. It's difficult, but it's rewarding. And then maybe do a small development. You have a single house, you tear it down, you build a quad, a 4-unit building. You know, that is something that people could do without it being their primary vocation, right? If you're gonna build 100 units, you have to be all in. But if you want to do something like that and kind of build your skill set, it works.
Yeah, I believe like it's a gradual process.
Sure.
In itself, right? I mean, I started with reservations, and now I'm gradually, tickling my fancy with development and trying to understand that concept, right? But I think that a lot of people think they could just make that leap from.
No, you have to walk before you can run.
You have to, and not even talking about the capital aspect of it. Development's very capital intensive, and you need to have
heavy pockets,
a large contingency, right? When we're talking development.
No. Well, I think that's why, and we're gonna dabble in, we're gonna touch onto it later, but that's why we're trying to create a real estate investment fund, because it is cash intensive, and sometimes a lot of time you're not getting cash flow while you're working on these projects. So if you can get some people to actually see some residual income in the front, I think it will keep them in the real estate game for the long term. Where stocks, which they're more liquid, of course, they're obviously can go up and down. I don't like it as an asset because it's not tangible.
It's volatile.
It's very volatile. But I understand the mechanisms on why people like it, because they put in 20 grand, maybe they're gonna get a dividend.
Yeah.
So how can we make real estate something that is attractive, that can give you dividends? So if you put in 20, 30 grand, at least you can get 200-300 a month. At least it becomes liquid as well. Hey, maybe if you want to withdraw your money for this fund after a year, you can.
Yeah.
If you have a property and the market's down, you can't sell it. So we have to, not ignore some of the limitations, but we have to address the limitations on real estate and teach you, okay, this is how you can circumvent it. This is how you can work it within these confines to make real estate something that is liquid, to make real estate something that will pay you dividends.
100%. So it's safe money.
Yeah, basically. So with this fund, will that allow people with all types of size wallets to get involved?
Yeah, and I think that is what's important is when I was starting up, if you didn't have 10, 20, 30 grand, you just couldn't get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So the barriers to entry were too high.
Yeah.
Right? Now, how do we reduce those barriers? How do we get people involved in real estate who are just starting out, who are young Canadians or Americans or whatever the case may be, who want to get in real estate and saying, hey, I have 5 grand. You know, I have $8,000. What can I do?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Even hey, I'm getting this amount of money from a check. We're gonna be taking RSP. So people who are even in a job, it's gonna be RSP eligible. Instead of putting yourself some in mutual funds or something where you have no clue what we don't even know who owns Shoppers Drug Mart or who's RBC, and you're putting your money there and expecting a certain return.
For sure.
We're putting in a fund and we're like, hey, here's the site that we're working on. Come to the site. It's tangible, right? So people know exactly where their money is going, and this is what we're doing with it. Whether it's in some mysterious place somewhere and you really don't know, you read one of those investment statements. I don't care who you are. The investment advisor doesn't know how to interpret them half the time. They definitely don't know where the money's gone.
For sure.
They don't know how Scotiabank used the money. No. They have no clue. So it's all about transparency, I think. And it's about limiting the barriers of entry and letting the young people get involved, which is why we're really trying to work with the younger people. And like you said, people with wallets of all sizes. And then once they get in and they experience some success, then they want to continue. But if in the beginning you're not even allowed in, you're going to go and play another game.
100%. So this was episode 2 of 3. The Millennials to Millionaires podcast. In the next episode, Sherard's going to get into some secrets to success and also how you can apply all of these principles to your life so that you can follow the footsteps to real estate and becoming successful.
Millennials to Millionaires.
Sherard McQueen, CEO, M5V Developments. Thank you.